Hi everybody, I'm Shelley Roxanne. Welcome to Google Hangout. We have an incredible show for you tonight, a great event. I am here with the accomplished Stephanie Anderson, candidate seeking election to the United States House of Representatives to represent the 23rd Congressional District of Florida. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you tonight?
Good. You ready?
I'm ready.
We have some questions
No
for
holds
you.
barred.
No holds barred, you sure?
No holds barred.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, I want to let everybody know, just to do some kind of logistics, to let them know if you want to participate, if you want to have questions for Steph, you can type it into the chat screen there on Google Hangout, and we will get them right away, and we will certainly try to get to your questions before the end of the show. Okay? Ready to go? Let's get right to it because we have a lot. Okay. You're a successful entrepreneur and philanthropist and have been very accomplished in those areas. What made you decide to run for Congress, especially against a long-term candidate, a long-term incumbent?
Well, because of my experiences working in those areas, I've gotten to learn a lot about different people in nonprofit work, through for-profit corporation work, corporate work. And what I've learned is that those voices, our voices in those areas are not being expressed in Washington. And I'm running because I feel that those are the people who have the answers to the problems that we're facing as a nation. We have shut out the people who do that day-to-day work, so that's my reason for running.
So you're a voice for the people. I know you reference yourself as a constitutionalist.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
A constitutionalist is a person who governs based on the United States Constitution. We have a lot of lawmakers who are moralist, which means that they try to legislate based on a morality. Now, the problem with that is that everybody's idea of what's moral and what's immoral changes. And so when you govern from the point of view of the Constitution, all of our laws sort of go back into that. And so, for instance, with our border control, we have a duty to protect our borders. It's in the Constitution, but we're failing to do that.
Well, this particular ballot has a lot of amendments and to the Constitution. So are you so when you say you're a constitutionalist, you believe it should be the way the Founding Fathers left it? Is there room for amendment?
Well, we're talking about two different ballots and two different constitutions. So the state of Florida has two amendments that they have introduced to its constitution this year. And one of them, of course, is on medicinal marijuana, and the other one is dealing with the Everglades. And so in that regards, the Florida Constitution has to yield to the federal Constitution. For instance, we can't have a law in our Florida Constitution that negates the rights of our federal constitutional rights. And so,
So you're essentially saying that the federal Constitution trumps a state constitution.
Right. That's
so
right.
Each state has its own constitution, and then there is a federal constitution.
Exactly.
So which one are you really a purist for?
The federal Constitution.
For the federal Constitution.
Absolutely. And in fact, a lot of states make laws that are contrary to the federal Constitution. And I'll give you a perfect example. Legislating how to define marriage is one of those. Because our Constitution is a document that is formed around our nation and its formation, we absolutely cannot define a term that predates it, especially if it's a religious or a biblical term. And so by doing that, by Florida stating we're going to change our Constitution to say this, we've actually gone against what the federal Constitution says, because we have the Equal Protection Clause there and other rights.
Okay, so you had mentioned that there is, and we know, on November 4th, everyone, don't forget to go out and vote, and that there is an amendment to the Florida Constitution
Yes,
that is called the Florida Right to Medical Marijuana Initiative.
yes.
And it's on the ballot in this state and is initiated as a constitutional amendment. So would you support that amendment?
I do support that amendment. I actually support the decriminalization of marijuana, period. That is another area where we have a moralistic point of view that contradicts the Constitution of the United States. For instance, I personally might not agree with marijuana, and that might be my moralistic point of view. But federally and constitutionally, we have a limited government, and our government doesn't give our legislators the right to decide personal matters for us unless they do harm to others.
Okay, well, that certainly opens the door for a lot of conversation, because there are a lot of issues out there facing not just Floridians, but Americans that are bordering on a moral versus a constitutional right.
Yes.
And so are you saying that they should not be, morals should not be considered when deciding the rights of individuals?
Absolutely not. But what I am saying is that when you use morals, maybe sometimes morals that you may not even espouse, as an excuse to take away or limit the rights of others, then that's where we have an issue. And so I think that in areas where, and for instance, medicinal marijuana is one of these areas where we're not introducing a foreign substance. We're allowing individuals who choose that care in conjunction with their doctor to have access to something. And the reason why we've limited that is because we haven't figured out how to collect revenue from it, which is very simple, because we already have RICO laws on the books that say if you sell something in this country for a profit and you don't report taxes on it, then we'll put you in jail for tax evasion. So I just think that we try to put too many more systems in place to actually go even further to limit the rights of our citizens.
Okay, so you're suggesting that marijuana, the use of it is acceptable for medicinal purposes, and as long as there is a tax imposed and there is some way for the government to profit, if you will.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that those things are already in place. For instance, if you have a small garden in your backyard and you grow tomatoes, and I like tomatoes and I'm your neighbor, you can sell me those tomatoes. If you don't report the income that you generate from selling those tomatoes, you're in violation with the government. So why do we have to put in more things into place that would actually just allow for the free exercise of trade of something in a system that already exists?
Okay, all right. So you're saying just to not put further restrictions in place, to treat it like any other commodity.
Exactly, because that's the way we used to treat it before. You know, we had in the 1930s this reefer madness, so to speak. And we have to examine, why do we have these type of laws in place over a plant? And then not only that, why do we now want to take that plant and put it into dispensaries where we put thousands, hundreds of thousands of young men and women in jail for the exact same thing? It's hypocritical.
Okay. So while we're on the issue of morals, let's get to some of the hot button issues.
Okay.
And of course, a woman's right to choose has been a controversial issue that has been the debate of many, political commentaries. What is your position on a woman's right to choose?
Well, my high school's motto was freedom with responsibility. And what I have learned is that with freedom also comes irresponsibility. And my hope is that we get to a point and a place in this society, in this country, where women take more responsibility over their reproductive health so that we can limit the number of abortions that are performed. But I believe that abortion is a surgical process, it's safe. We don't want to send women back to going undercover to do these kind of things. And there are cases where birth control fails, where women are raped, and it should be allowed legally in our society.
So you would support that being completely across the board a legal process, and it is a woman's right to choose whether she elects to terminate a pregnancy or not. Is there any restrictions to that?
I don't think that there needs to, I don't think that there, the problem is that we have a moral failure in our families there. If we want to limit or eliminate abortion, we need to stop, we need to eliminate irresponsibility when it comes to reproduction. Birth control has been legal in this country for over 50 years. If we had more people, more families, explaining to their children that, first of all, it's okay for you to be asexual and not have sexual interest in our society at your age. The problem with that is that we live in a society where our children have been sexualized, and we need to stop that, because kids don't know that they don't have the option of not being sexual beings as children. So once we've established that, that's step one. Then step two is we need to explain to our children, our sons and our daughters, as with anything else, in age-appropriate language, these are the things that you do to prevent unplanned pregnancy or unwanted pregnancy. I also think that we need to stop the financial incentive for there to be unplanned pregnancies in this country.
There is a financial incentive?
I think in some cases, we have individuals who don't necessarily practice safe sex because they are trying to initiate a different type of scenario. Now this happens in the upper income and it happens in the lower income. Anytime that a child can be, anytime a child can add to a financial windfall, not the care and expenses of a child, I'm not saying that, but anytime you have the birth of a child result in a financial windfall for a parent who wasn't able to, for one party or another, and only one party had a clear understanding of what was going on, then there's a financial incentive. And I say that because we know how much it costs to raise a child from birth to 18 in this country. We've estimated that to be a little under $300,000 from birth to 18. So why are we paying men like Halle Berry's husband, for instance, $25,000 a month to care for a child when that child may or may not reap the benefits of that, and when she would be better suited having those funds put into an account by the person who's able to provide them for her use later on in life.
That is a very interesting approach to that. I can't say that probably people have really thought about it in that way, as that there is some financial incentive. But we know that abortions are not only done by young teenagers who
You're right.
are irresponsible. There are other reasons for it.
The majority of abortions are not done by young teenagers that are irresponsible. They're done by women in our age group. And so we do need to understand what's the reason for it. I think that we put a stigma on women in this society as far as if we examine just pop culture. Why is it okay for us to sexualize a 12-year-old or Miley Cyrus, but when Beyonce comes out, for instance, grown woman and married, then what's wrong with her and why is she dressing that way? We are putting the wrong messages where they don't belong. We should not have our children in a position to where they're having to make these type of decisions. So when you've got an adult woman who knows better, and they're the majority of the women who are having these abortions, we have to wonder why. Is it because we've stigmatized birth control? Is it because we've just gotten lazy and we're using it as abortion as family planning? Whatever the reasons are, eliminating abortion isn't the answer. Eliminating the behavior is the answer.
Well, I think that certainly is a great answer. That takes us now to, let us say, Stephanie, that your constituents out there decide that they're going to upset things and send Stephanie Anderson to the United States House of Representatives. What, as Stephanie goes to Washington, what are your three main things? What are you going to do